Welcome to Let's Get Into It. I am your host, Sherelle Higgins. Let's Get Into It is a safe space to have real conversations that are meant to uplift, encourage, and let you know you are not the only one dealing with life. Each episode of Let's Get Into It is designed to provide illuminating and thought-provoking information on a variety of topics. In fact, no topic is off limit. If you would like to see a topic discussed, please feel free to make a recommendation. My special guest and I will have a great time discussing topics that the mainstream media wouldn't dare discuss. We will bring these conversations to you with an open mind, respectfully, from different perspectives, and most importantly, with love. Thank you for joining me and my special guest. Now, let's get into it. Hello, everybody. This is the next episode of Let's Get Into It. I am coming to you live from the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And of course, as many of you know, right after Virginia State homecoming, me and my girls, we come down here for our annual girls trip. And I decided to have my show anyway, even though I really wanted to lay down. And if I'm completely transparent, I will tell you that I have been broke down since homecoming. Homecoming was everything for me, but I will tell you my back has been killing me. I almost went to urgent care yesterday. And so I seem to be doing better today. That massage at the spa really helped. And so today we want to talk about forgiveness and the legacy of forgiveness, because it's important for us to really think about what are we forgiving others for and what do we need to be forgiven for. And so I know that my friend Daryl Crush, DJ Daryl Crush, he has been posting things on social media about leading up to homecoming. And one of the things he talked about was whatever you were disgruntled about with somebody that you went to school with 40 plus years ago, you really need to get over it and forgive them. Or maybe they need to forgive you, whatever that is. Or maybe something happened at homecoming that you need to forgive somebody for, or that you need to be forgiven for. And my guest today, I heard her story at a conference, a women's conference. And at the conference, I thought, wow. As many of you all who really know me, one of the things I think about all the time, I say all the time, is that God is still working on me. And so forgiveness is not a hard thing for me, but what is hard for me is how I behave or how I move once I have forgiven somebody. And so that might look different to each of us. And so we're going to talk about what does that look like, and has God put on your heart to forgive somebody and do something that you really didn't want to do? I know I have had that experience. And so I'm wondering, have you had that experience where there was something you was adamant that you were not going to do that involved forgiveness, but yet God kept pushing you and pushing you and pushing you. And at some point you had to be obedient to what God's word was. And so I'm going to bring to the stage my guest, Dr. Ansonia Burke, who's going to share with us her journey to forgiveness and how she had to be obedient to God's way. So welcome, Dr. Sonia. Ansonia.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'm so happy. When I heard your story at the conference, I was like, I knew I had to have you on my show because God hasn't gotten me to that point yet. And I'm okay with saying that because self-awareness is an interesting thing. And I am so self-aware that I know that there are some things that I don't know. I know that I will be fighting against the force on. And so before we get into that part of your journey, Dr. Ansonia, can you tell us like where you were born and raised?
So I was born and raised in Tucson, Arizona.
Oh wow, hot, hot, hot.
Hot, dry heat, dry heat.
Yes. Arizona was the first place I went to where it was so hot. They had water misters coming off the side of the building. And back then I used to have a perm and I'm like, oh my God, they about to mess up my hair. Okay, so Dr. Ansonia, where do you live now?
I live in San Antonio, Texas.
And how did you get from Arizona to San Antonio?
So I married a soldier in the US Army, and we traveled around the world for over 22 years. And so we ended up retiring here in San Antonio.
Okay. All right. And so at what age did you get married?
I got married at the age of 21.
Oh, you was a young thing.
I was.
That's what they call a PYT.
Right, pretty young thing.
You were younger than me when you got married.
I was.
Okay. And so you met a gentleman and you all fell in love and you all got
Mhm.
married. Did you have kids?
We did. We had two. We had a boy and a girl, which is what I wanted. I only wanted two, a boy and a girl. So I have a son named Quentin, who's an adult. He's 31, and I have a daughter who just joined the Army um, when her dad passed. Um, and she is in Fort, she's somewhere, Fort somewhere. She's 21,
You had your kids 10 years apart.
11 years.
Oh, wow. Okay, I have my kids 5 years apart, and back then it seemed like a good idea, but now not so much.
No. Ours
Okay,
wasn't actually calculated that way. Initially, I didn't think I could have kids.
okay.
And so both of them came, I don't want to say oops, because we were trying and just couldn't. But there's a story behind that too with my son, how God just really orchestrated that. But that's another show at another time. But Anaya came when we didn't think we could have any more, and here she is.
Okay. All right. So, all right, so you get married, you have two kids, and you go off living the military life. And
Yeah,
I will thank you for your service,
thank
right?
you. Yeah,
Being a military spouse is a heavy burden and a huge responsibility. And I understand that as a military spouse, in some instances you give up a lot of things that you want to do to follow your soldier.
that is correct.
Yeah, so thank you and your family for your service. So tell me some of the places you lived as a military spouse.
We lived in Fort Huachuca, Arizona. We lived in Germany for 4 years. We lived in Norfolk, Virginia. We lived in Washington, D.C., San Antonio, Texas. He did several tours over in Korea, two of those. And I think that's about the big place. And then he retired in Killeen, Texas.
Okay. All right. And so as a young wife, what's the most one of the most important things you learned?
To be flexible
Mhm.
during that time when when we first got married. Remember, I was only 21, and our first duty station for me was Germany. So I had to leave my family when I got married. And so with my son Quentin, we went over there as soon as he was born. And just the fact that he was in the field all the time, and I had to be, initially I was a stay-home mom, and wanted to nurse my son until he was 1. So we did that, and just being able to, at a young age, just being, understanding that he's not home, you have to pretty much do this. I became independent. I was always independent, but very independent in Germany because I didn't have any family there. So yeah, just being flexible.
Okay, and so what's one thing you learned about yourself as a military spouse?
Really, resilience, really. Just there's just so much, being a military wife, being a young military wife who is independent, and I always, and having a strong personality, and then he had a strong personality too. And so just really, trying to figure out we both can't be at a 10 at the same time. So learning how to navigate that. Now that came in time, trust me. We were married 28 years, so it took some time for us to be able to navigate, and me understanding that we all can't be upset at the same time, that somebody has to back down. And during that time, he wasn't going to. So I had to, kind of make some adjustments for myself in order for us to live in the same household.
Understood. I've been married a long time, so I get all of that. And my husband a Gemini, so he got that twin in him, and so I understand that completely. If his twin jump out when my Taurus stubbornness jump out, it could be explosions.
Yes, yes.
He's learned that over the years too. So only one of us could be on 10 at one time.
Okay.
We get that. And so
Mhm.
you get married young, you have a child while you're young, and then you are living your life as a military spouse. And
Yes.
so as you are not only are you doing all of that, you also are maturing, right? And figuring out who you are and what you want as a woman.
Yes.
And so talk to us about those early days of marriage.
So the early days were, pretty, of course, as I shared, pretty tough just because I had a newborn. He was out in the field a lot. I wanted to go to school. I had to put that on hold because, you can't have a newborn with your spouse not present. I also wanted to work, so I had to give up some of that at times. Um, and then, you have to be, as I said, flexible because even when you're in school and working, I had to find a nanny while we were in Germany because after he was a year, I was ready. Hey, that staying home stuff during that time was not my lifestyle. So I was at my peak at 10 months. So I was like, okay, it's time to go to work. So finding a nanny and, grocery shopping and trying to have, a relationship with your friends and learning new people and trying to enjoy all the travels and things of that nature. And the fact that he couldn't go on a lot of the travel things because of work. So just really trying to navigate all those things alone initially. But as we progressed, we were there for 4 years. So a lot of our harder times were down was when we were first in Germany. And then once we left Germany, um, I can't even remember where we went. After Germany, I think we went to, where did we go? Virginia, and we were stationed there. And again, that was different too, just simply because he was close to his family, because he's from North Carolina. A lot of his family was in Virginia and Maryland and New York. And so here I am, by myself again, and just trying to navigate, the family things. He had a break-in service during that time. So we were living with his family and just learning learning him because he was definitely different. The things that we would look for now in a man was probably what I wasn't looking for then. I was in love and just ready to get married and follow. I had like this dream life and figured out very quickly that it wasn't that kind of life. So really just trying to navigate who I was, because again, still trying to grow and understand who I was, understand who he was, and the family and my family, and doing the blended thing. Um, So in those years, it was pretty tough at a young age. I think if I had to do it all over again or had the opportunity to do it, I think I would have waited, finished college, which is definitely what I'm advocating for my children now. You know, get your life together, do all the traveling, do all those things that you've always wanted to do, see the world, and then decide to, settle down and get married.
Yeah, when I met my husband, I'm from Chicago. He's a military brat, but he pretty much grew up in Northern Virginia. And once I finished college, he's older than I am, so he got me when I was young. Good for him, right? And
Yeah.
I didn't know no better, but here we are. But I completely relate to moving to Northern Virginia, where all his family and friends were around, and I had nobody. And trying to navigate that situation wasn't necessarily easy, um,
Mhm.
especially because the type of family that I grew up in was very different than the type of family he grew up in and the type of friends he had. And so just trying to navigate that was, when I look back on it, was difficult for me. And I remember I used to tell my mom, I think they read each other's minds because my family, we loud, we like to joke, we, laughing all the time. And when I would go around his family, they would be quiet. Nobody was really talking. And I was like, I think they reading each other's mind because how in the world are we sitting up in here for 4 hours and ain't really no whole bunch of talking and laughing and signifying going on. So
Yes.
blending those two environments, I think what helped my situation was my mother-in-law and my father-in-law. They loved me, like they accepted me as one of their own, and I think that helped a lot.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you would say that because mine was the direct opposite. They didn't care for me right away. And I think part of that was because so they were, they lived in the country and so they loved to be outside. I was it was too hot coming from Arizona to be outside. And so they were always outside. I was inside under the air. And I was a strong woman, so it wasn't that they were from the North Carolina. They served their men, and I would serve him, but not in the capacity that they were used accustomed to. So really, that part of blending his exterior, like his cousins and all of them, they loved me, but really trying to navigate the internal with his closest family. Um, was a little bit harder. But once I got in there and they realized, I had his best interests at heart, and I was just one of those people that, just kind of said what I meant and meant what I said.
Hey, come on
Um,
now.
they figured it out.
Yeah, I think I tease my husband all the time. I'm like, your father loved me more than he loved you, and he'd be like, no, sir. What you doing? Get yourself together because this one you don't want to lose. And I really
Right.
appreciated that about my father-in-law. And he was a strong advocate for Black men because he grew up in Kentucky and a time where Black men struggled in the South, and so he was adamant that his son was going to not only be successful in life, but also that he was going to uh, grow into a man who can withstand a family. And so for me, that really worked out. And so I like my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, they were everything to me. I was
No, I
like,
love it. Yes, yes, yes.
okay. And so you integrate into the family. And at some point, we all have trials and tribulations amongst, in-laws, and that
Yeah.
happens. The key to me is the forgiveness piece and the moving on piece, right? There's been situations where me and my sisters-in-laws, we didn't. My husband is the only boy; he got two sisters. We had some, conflict, and I think my husband handled it well in terms of either a staying out of it and letting us work through it, which I think is the best solution. That way,
Mhm,
I
mhm.
feel like you got to pick sides, even though he know he would have had to pick my side. And so we move on beyond that, and then you move as a military family away from his family as well. Talk to us
Yeah.
about that next step in the journey.
So he did when we got he just did not want to be in the military. So we got out, we did the break-in service, we lived with his family, and then he realized that he wanted to go back in. So we navigated all of that. Fast forward, went back into the military, did a lot more traveling to all those places we talked about. And it was rough. We got stationed here, probably closer to, because he wanted to retire here in Texas. So we got closer to that time, and he got sick.
Mm,
So he got it was called polyarthritis nodosa. It's a autoimmune disease, and this was at the end of his career. So he had retired here in San Antonio. And then all of a sudden he got his first job. He was a drill sergeant. So he got out and he was working for a high school. And he started, just having some episodes. He was running and his foot would drop, just all these, real weird things that were happening in and out of the hospital, couldn't figure it out. And I remember one day we went to the hospital and I said, we're not leaving until we figure out what's going on with him.
hmm
Um, a new doctor came in from Arizona. I remember this, Yuma, Arizona. He had just graduated from Northern Arizona University. And he came in and he was in the ER, took some tests, came right out and said, your husband has this rare disease.
Mm.
Very debilitating in terms of, it attacks the spleen, it attacks the blood vessels. And so it was just not a good place for us, but it was a very rough place for us as well. But I nurtured him, back to life. He had 11 different surgeries. He ended up having to have a below the knee amputation, which was very, very difficult.
On
So
both
I'll say that again.
on both legs or just one?
No, just one.
Okay.
It was a below the knee on just one. And so then he went into remission. But he was bitter. He was very, very upset because he was very athletic. He, worked out 2 or 3 times, a day. He did everything as far as taking care of his body and things of that nature. So he was very, bitter. And I can understand that, having to get, we tried to save the leg. The doctors were just so upset that they would even have to do it. So they did everything that they could possibly do to try to save his leg, and it just didn't happen. So he was bitter for a while. It was very, very rough for us during that time, and just trying to get him to, settle. His relationship with God wasn't that strong during that time. Mine was. So, I was constantly in prayer, constantly praying over him, friends and family doing the same thing. But we just couldn't make it. It just, my parents got a divorce and I had vowed that I would not divorce. So I literally stayed in the marriage with some verbal abuse, just simply because I wanted to be there for him. I didn't want to leave in that state because I knew what the rumor would be. Oh, she left because he had a below the knee amp, and that wasn't the case. Like
Mhm.
we were in trouble prior to that.
Right, right.
That just
Like divorce just happened yesterday. I'm like, it's been a long time coming.
yeah. And then I just, we separated and we just couldn't do it. We just couldn't do it. So we ended up,
What was the impact on your children when he had to have one of his legs amputated?
Oh, it with Anaya, the youngest, the girl, she she was it was hurt. It was very hard for her. She would literally want to come to the hospital every day. We had to have somebody, take care of her during that time, and they would bring her up to the hospital, and she would literally get in the bed with him. That was the sweetest thing to me. She would come up there and she would lay in the bed with him for hours until it was time for her to go home and get ready for school. My son, he just, I don't know, he just kind of did a 360. He wouldn't even come up to the hospital. He couldn't do it. He just couldn't take it. So it was rough for us as a family during that time. Very hard.
And so he has this below the knee amputation. I can only imagine the psychological damage that something like that will have on an individual and the individual's immediate family.
Yeah.
Typically, when we are, as humans, when we are sick, we take our frustrations out on our immediate family, those that are closest to us. And so, as a wife, what was that experience like? And like, what did you do for self-care during that time?
During that time, I had a very good church family. Shout out to Now Word. They were here. We were there. I was a member there for like 13, 12, 13 years. But literally, when that happened, they pulled together, they did a food chain. I think it was for about a month, and they didn't normally do that, but it was for about a month. We had food coming in because the care for him was very hard. And then they literally, I didn't have to cook or do anything like that, but they literally, and I'll never forget this. Don't get me, I might get teared up because I think about it, but they literally got me a spa package, a massage where they could come to my home and give me massages so I could make sure that, he was still taken care of, but yet I was still getting away to it. During that time, we had a lot of the men that would come over and take him to his physical therapy here at Brooke Army Medical Center. It was just an amazing church family that really helped to pull me through, and the children during that time, just coming to get, Anaya and making sure that I was well taken care of and we had food and all those things. It was amazing.
And you use the words verbal abuse. And many people, when they think about abuse, they think about physical abuse. But oftentimes, verbal abuse and emotional abuse can be worse than physical abuse. And
It
so,
absolutely is.
let's talk about the verbal abuse and how that impacted you and how it impacted your kids if they were privy to seeing it.
We were walking on eggshells. It was tough. We were literally walking on eggshells. We weren't, sure about, when we come home, what was that going to look like for the family? Just kind of trying to navigate that whole, structure for them. And then for me, trying to give them some type of normalcy. During that process as well. So making sure that, if they, had football and, basketball, they were both very active kids during that time. So really trying to take care of him and make sure he was well taken care of and getting to, his appointments. I was still working then. And thank God my job was allowing me to work from home for half days. And then I could go in while he was in the hospital. And so just literally, just trying to make sure that they had some sense of normalcy during that time.
And how were you able to navigate the verbal abuse from absorbing it and starting to believe it?
Initially, I went to therapy because that was my only outlet.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a very private person. So it wasn't like I could, you know, go and talk to, you know, my friends and family. And then, like, you know, he didn't want very many people at the house, which I can, you know, kind of understand at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yet it was also hard for me because I was very outgoing. I had lots of friends and things like that that I depended on. And so just trying to keep myself, I'm an affirmation girl. I love affirmations. And
Mm-hmm.
so my spiritual life kicked in very heavily. It always has been heavy for me, but during that time, I literally would get in the mirror some days when I wasn't doing well emotionally and speak to myself, declare to myself who I was in Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And just literally, some days I would just get the word out and just declare and decree things into existence within that atmosphere because it was a very, very hard, I would say toxic at that time atmosphere.
Wait, I started that podcast with God is still working on me, and I know He got a lot of work to do with me. So this is where this next question is coming from. So was he in a wheelchair after he got his leg amputated, or did he have a prosthetic?
He had a prosthetic.
Okay, and so I'm thinking in my mind because God's still working on me. Keep that in mind. I probably would have pushed him over.
I thought about it. Thought about it.
Get me, Lord. You know my heart. Let me be honest too. I don't mean to make light of your
No,
situation.
you're fine.
Um, okay, and so you know, you went to therapy, and I can imagine that during that time, therapy still had a huge stigma on it for Black folks.
Correct.
Um, and so, what gave you the courage to go get therapy?
I was literally dying. I mean, literally, I didn't have a choice during that time. I had to do, I was in survival mode for a very long time. And so I had to do something to make sure that I could live. And so for me, I needed to go to a place where I could feel safe. I was a very private person. He was very private. So it wasn't like I could share. And then if he would find out that it was shared, he would be not so happy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I needed to go to a place where I know that what I could say, I could be open and honest, and I knew it wasn't going anywhere. So it didn't matter at that point. I had to live.
Okay, so how did that impact your confidence and your self esteem?
Well, that's why I went to therapy because it was really wearing on it. And I didn't feel like it was an out of body experience for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was literally thinking I was watching a film. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's when I knew I needed to go and talk to someone because I just felt like I was watching. It was overwhelming. Of course, I would snap, you know, you're snapping and you don't even know why you're snapping. And so I had to do something where I could be, I still had my kids. I had to be present for them. So I had
Mm-hmm.
to find a way to be able to navigate through some of that and be present.
Okay, and then let's talk about the turning point because at some point there was a turning point. Let's talk about that. What was your turning point when you knew that it was okay to do what you needed to do?
Um, well, of course, I talked to my pastor, got wise counsel, and the reason I stayed for as long as I did was because of the wise counsel. But I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't. It didn't make sense to me
Mm-hmm.
that God would have me in a situation like this when He's a God of love.
Mm-hmm.
So would you have me where I'm being depleted, verbally abused, not feeling confident about anything? Would it just in my head, it just wasn't registering, it wasn't matching what the word was saying, you know. how a husband should treat his wife and all those things that were prevalent in my spiritual life that day. And so the wise counsel, of course, they were, you need to stay. That's what the Bible says. And I'm like, I understand that, but I just couldn't make it happen. And so um, I said, I left. Well, he left for initially. I left, and then he left, and it was just this back and forth thing. And finally, I just said, it's just not going to work. We're just not going to be able. I can do more for you in a healthy state, not being here, than I can with us being here together.
And you were still thinking about what you could do for him.
For him.
Oh, that's interesting. That's powerful. Because the way my mind set up, I told you guys still working on me. Yeah, that's powerful because I can honestly say I don't know that that's kind of how I would have thought it through. I could do more for you in a healthy state than, yeah, I would have been like, good luck.
Peace out. Well, remember we still had kids. So either way, we had to communicate regardless. Right. And I was
still minors though.
They were, Anaya was, they were, Quentin was older.
Okay.
So I think Quentin was like maybe 16 or something like that, maybe even a little. And then Anaya was still like in her, 7 or 8 years old.
Oh, okay.
So we still, I still had them with me. So right. We had to do, something. And I think for me, to be honest, now that I'm really thinking about it and talking, so just so everybody knows, this is the first time I've been this transparent.
Okay, ever. Come on.
So it's a little difficult, so work with me. But they were young, and I did not want my son to grow up thinking that it was okay. I think he had seen enough that I didn't want him growing up thinking that some of the things that he was doing was okay. And I didn't want my daughter thinking that a man should be able to, treat, them like that. And so dealing with all those thoughts at one time and trying to navigate, should I stay, should I go? And then listening to all these voices that are saying, well, the Bible says this. And I'm like, but the Bible says that, he's supposed to be, loving me like Christ loves the church. And then, you can do scripture all day long and people have to dissect it the way they wanted to. And I just could never bring peace to that. And so that's kind of navigating to making sure at what point is it going to really be harmful to my children versus me getting out of that and making a better life for all of us. So, that's what happened. And, we finally, he was very, very upset that I left. And that it was hard. It was, even after the divorce, it was hard. It was hard because he was still bitter. And let me just say this. I was not perfect at all. There were some things that I did that I probably shouldn't have done. In terms of, I'm not ready to release that yet, but it wasn't with other men. But there were some things that I did that probably had some contribution to the failure. So I don't blame all of it on him at all. But I was the only one willing to go to therapy. So I wanted it to work. And when the therapist finally said, there's nothing, you can only work on yourself, but we're not going to be able to work on the marriage unless he comes too. Men, they don't want to go.
Yes. You said something very key, and that is you did not want your son to think that that's how he was supposed to treat women, and you didn't want your daughter to think that that's how men were supposed to treat her. That's so very key. On my very last podcast, I have my children who are young adults. And one of the questions I asked them was, what have you learned and you have taken into your relationships from me and your father? And this was the first time I've ever heard my son say this. But my son's answer to that was, Dad taught me how to keep a woman. And I thought that was powerful. He was like, you can get a woman, that part is easy, but to
Yeah.
a woman, and all of the things I've seen dad do for you, I am now incorporating into the relationship that I'm currently in. And I thought that was
Wow.
powerful. Because we get talked to we blue in the face as parents, but the kids, they watch what we do, they watch what we
Mhm.
accept, and they watch how we navigate the world. And unless we are navigating the world in such a way that they understand, then they're subject to grow up and repeat some of the things we don't necessarily want them to repeat. Let me see what this
Correct.
said. So Lainey says, sounds very familiar to what my mom went through. I pray for my brothers and I to break the cycle. Yes, that cycle is very important. Thank you for that, Lainey. The cycle is very important. And so sometimes I often ask my husband, and we all grew up in dysfunction, right? It is what it is.
It
And
is.
so I often ask my husband, how did you become the man that you are now? Understanding that what he witnessed in his upbringing was very different. And he was just like, I just was not going to be that. I just wasn't going to do that. And so sometimes you just have to make that decision to break the cycle and say, I'm going to be a different person. I am going to live my life differently. I am going to treat others differently. And even with myself, I grew up in a blended family, and in our blended family, my sisters and I were talking about this the other night, but in our blended family, while there may have been dysfunction at the adult level, they did an amazing job of not bringing the kids into it. And as a result of that, the kids are very close. And I'm so thankful for that because I thought growing up that that's how all blended families worked. And it wasn't
Mhm.
until I was well into adulthood that I realized that we were kind of you different than a lot of blended families. It was a lot of turmoil, drama, and all of that.
Yeah.
And so, as we navigate relationships and we have children, I think we have to think about what are we teaching our sons and our daughters? What are we teaching them, right? About what
Yeah.
relationships are. I heard somebody say the other day, which I thought was really interesting, that their family did not teach them how to love.
Mm.
And I thought that was really interesting. And then I started thinking, I was like, well, did they teach us how to love? And love looks different to every family, right?
Absolutely. Mhm.
And so, as we, raise kids, we really have to think about what are we teaching them? Are we teaching them to settle? Are we teaching them that whatever you do is never good enough and therefore you should stay? Are we teaching them that no matter what, you should stay? Are we teaching them that at some point you got to decide what you want for yourself and what makes you happy, and therefore you have to make the hard decision to leave? Right. And so I thought that was really powerful when you talked about what you was, making sure you was trying not to teach your kids. um and so then so you decide to leave finally,
Mhm.
after the back and forth, your turn, my turn, whatever. Okay, and now we're gonna get a divorce. How do you have that conversation with your kids?
I think they knew.
Okay.
Like, they knew something had to happen or something was gonna happen. So I think they knew that, it was time. So, they had some difficulty, but I think ultimately they were much happier.
Mm-hmm.
They were
Mm-hmm.
much happier. Initially, I had them both, and then, of course, things happen, and you're not doing what the kids want you to do, so they go and stay. Quentin went and stayed with his dad for a little bit, and back and forth. So yeah, it was hard, but I think it was necessary.
Yeah, I think fortunately I've never had to have that type of conversation with my kids. But I can only imagine as a parent, having to have that conversation, especially after you've been together for so long, right?
Mhm.
Having that conversation and having it in such a way that is age appropriate and
Yes,
that you're not putting all the blame on the other partner,
correct.
and and speaking about the other partner in such a way that your kids don't pick up your energy and then project that energy on the other person.
Right.
Okay, and so you have the conversation, you decide this is it, because R. Kelly said, when a woman is fed up, and ain't nothing you can do about it. That's my favorite line of anything he's ever written. And so you were fed up, and there was nothing he could do about it. And so you decided to divorce.
Mhm.
So you go through the divorce, and then what happens?
I moved to Austin. I just needed a change of pace. I moved to Austin and we did the, co-parenting thing. So it was hard because I had to start setting boundaries for myself. I didn't have any boundaries at that time. I had to start setting boundaries for myself. And I ended up taking, it was me and Anaya. So I was a single parent with Anaya for the duration of her time. And so, back and forth, doing, trying to co-parent, with someone that's not happy and bitter, was a little challenging at times. Um, but, here we are. And the, uh, it was hard because I didn't tell the children my side of this, any of the side of the story. He told the story and they wanted to come and have me fill in the blanks. And I chose not to. I said, this is not between you and him, it's between me and him. And
Mm-hmm.
so those things kind of disrupted a little bit because he only told the things that I was contributing that
Mm-hmm.
weren't right and not talking about his contributions.
Mm-hmm. So let me see. Vanessa says, we think we are protecting our kids, but we are actually doing them more harm when we when we stay in a toxic relationship. It seems they know when it is time to let go, even when we don't accept it. Yes, Vanessa.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. And so he was telling his side of the story. You chose not to tell yours, which I applaud, right? Because
Mhm.
again, it's not about the kids and they don't have anything
Mhm.
to do with the adult things. And so you were protecting them from information they didn't necessarily need. And
Correct.
then, what happened?
So that was hard, just simply because I stayed the blame, and that was okay at the time. Created some boundaries. There were times when finally said, I'm not, I'm not tolerating that behavior, and I would not talk to him. And so that happened so we were divorced like 11, 12, 13 years.
Mm,
And that went on for a very long time. It was just hard because to set boundaries with him was difficult. And so one of the things that I had allowed is that when he would do all his stuff, then I would take him back without the apology. And then if it was an apology, it was a fake apology. And you know how all that stuff
right.
goes. But long story short, fast forward, it was I was in, we got the divorce. I was there and he got sick in between those times. Now, when I was home, there's the piece that I forgot. When I was home, I took very good care of him. This disease, it, it triggers like 6 or 7 different things within your body.
Mm,
So if his foot would hurt, and his blood pressure would up, it would trigger like diabetes and all these other different things that would happen within your body. So I learned all the things that needed to happen. If this would happen, then you need to do this. That because it was such a rare disease, a lot of the doctors and nurses didn't know how to care for him when he
mm-hmm,
had an episode.
mm-hmm,
So anytime he would have an episode or something would happen, he would call me to come to the hospital to do whatever, and I would go.
mm-hmm.
So he went into remission, and then 2 years ago, it came back with a vengeance. He called me and asked me to come. I came, and I call it regulate. He would call me to come up and regulate because the doctors didn't know, and they would think he was asking for pain medicine for no reason. So anyway, I had to go up there, get all that straight, tell them how this disease works, what they need to do. Literally, they would call me on the phone. I would tell them how to do it. So this time when this happened, I came to him, and they said that he was going to have a double amp.
But this was after the divorce?
Mhm.
Oh, wow. Oh,
2 years ago. 2 years ago. So 2023.
Okay, you're a good woman. God's still working on me.
So came up, and they said, "Oh, we're gonna have to do it." And I mean, that was just devastating because, now mind you, this is a drill sergeant, 22 years in the military, strong man, alpha man. Just, I mean, to see him in that state was devastating for all of us. But I came down, did what I needed to do, stood by him, and we went to like several different hospitals. Then he had to go to rehab. It was hard, you know. He asked me, so once he had the double amp, he called and said, this is after he had that, we got him home. He asked me if I would come and take care of him. Now, hindsight, before I get into all this little bitty stuff, hindsight, I think he knew he was headed to a death, unfortunately. But so during that time I was going to therapy, and I had decided I wanted to be whole, healthy and whole, mind, body, and spirit, when I went to my next relationship, because I wanted to get married again. So I was in therapy, have been in therapy 2 years. He called, I was like, absolutely not. I said, let me talk to my therapist. She's like, no, I don't think that's that's probably not a good idea for you. We've already set the boundaries. Things were great. Let's not do that. He can find, his family and all that to come down. I wrestled with that thing, and my answer to him was, no, I don't think we can do this. And man, when I tell you, I said no, the Lord was waking me up in the middle of the night. And I'm like, I don't know why you would make me go back to something that you took me out of. I can't believe that you're saying I have to go back. So we wrestled, for a few days, maybe even a week. And I had to go. So came back to San Antonio, went to the hospital, and just began the journey for him, trying to get him back to health, back in the hospital. He was back in rehab, and it was very, very hard. And just a whole bunch of in this disease, it literally eats your flesh. So he had to go back for a lot of debridements, just a lot of hospitalization, doctors, all that. And it was just hard to, I don't know that anyone would have been able to come and take care of him like that. And when I went back, I said, okay, God, if you're going to make me go, I'll go. Came back, went into the hospital. They were like, he told them that, I was his wife. So during that time, I was his wife to everyone. So he had went in, did all that. And so I just began to take care of him, stayed at the hospital, took care of him. And then, he passed. It was difficult. The one thing that I really appreciate being able to do is he was at odds with some of his family members. And so I called them and said, you need to come. And they came, and they were able to reconcile their differences before he left.
So Dr. I know you're a woman of faith and all that, but we still human. So, like, at no point when you went back to take care of him, you ain't say, "Now look at you. Now you need me with your little simple behind." Like, you ain't do none of that, Dr. Sonya.
I didn't. It became clear now prior to that, of course, you have crazy thoughts. I thought about the mad black woman when
I
she threw him in the
too.
tub. I did. But when I went there, I was on assignment and
Okay.
I didn't know at the time. I told God I wanted to be whole in every area. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know that I had unforgiveness for him, and
Mm.
he had unforgiveness for me.
Mm-hmm.
So during that time, I didn't know that we were going to have this conversation. We were going to talk about a lot of the things. I found out why he was really upset with me and what the root of it was. I was able to tell him the same thing. We were able to apologize, but I rubbed his head. I mean, I literally treated him like he was my husband in
Mm-hmm.
the hospital. And let me tell you why. First of all, I was on assignment.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I love hard. And to
Mm.
see someone that I had children with in that state, even though I know some of that was because of his hardened heart,
Mm-hmm.
I still couldn't, it was hard for me to say no after the Lord said, yes, you're
Mm.
going. And so literally I just went and, I just nurtured him because I didn't want him to leave here because I could the Lord had already told me that's what was going to happen.
Mhm.
And I just couldn't leave not doing all the things that I know how to do. So I could feel good about me and doing the right thing.
Okay, so lady said you passed the test. I'm sure I would have still I would have had to learn the lesson again because the way I'm set up. I know I would have said some things that the Lord did not tell me to say. We have another question. Did he sign a new insurance policy with you as the beneficiary?
Now they joking. See, y'all wrong.
I'm gonna be like you when I grow up.
Yes. And then the other thing is my daughter was getting ready to drop out of school to come take care of her dad, and I
Mm,
wasn't having that.
right, right.
So that was the other push, is
Yeah.
that he wanted to do that, and I was like, "Oh, no, no, no. Before you do that, I'm going to do it." So I didn't want her carrying that kind of burden.
Yeah, I get that part of it. I probably would have did the same. She said, "I'm serious about the insurance," but I'd have been in that hospital room, like, "Look at you, not just look at you." All
It's funny because I was listening to a podcast it was either yesterday or the day before. It was a marriage podcast. And it was the man on there and his wife had died. And she said the same thing. Everyone was saying it couldn't have been me. I wouldn't have done that. And I immediately thought about you uh, just from our first conference when you said, I'm glad he didn't ask me. And and my, and my thing was, and what her response was, which is my response to now that I've heard that, is that, and this is not to you, this is just in general, that's why God didn't ask you all to do it, because
yeah, he knew I would
he
not
knew.
pass the test, and even if I went to take care of him, yeah, he would have had to hit some things.
Yes. And that's why, and I that's why I had to do it. And so once I knew why I had to go, it was so much different. There wasn't that resistance there that was
Yeah.
there initially. It was funny because when I went to my therapist appointment before I left and I told her I was going, I said, I have to go because the Lord won't let me rest. And she
Mm,
put up I remember she put up her hands and she said, if the Lord is saying it, my hands are off. You have
mm,
to go.
yeah,
I
yeah.
cried like a baby.
Mm, look, I would have still been crying. Till I got to that hospital, I would have thought of all the things I wasn't supposed to say. But I would have said it anyway. And I would have said, Lord, you're going to have to forgive me. But I'm here. So, Dr. Ansonia, this time has gone by really quickly.
It has.
For your story, it is very powerful. And all jokes aside, when the Lord gives us an assignment, we can either do it this time or the next time, right? Because
You're
we
going
are
to do it.
to do the assignment. And
Mm-hmm.
you for listening the first time so you don't have to repeat the assignment. And
Yes.
you are an inspiration. I am constantly trying to grow and who I am as an individual. And I recognize I'm not there yet. I got a lot of growing to do, and I'm okay with it. I've come a long way from where I was, but I got a long way to where I need to go. And so, thank you so very much for being my guest on this episode of Let's
Okay.
Get Into It. I appreciate you sharing your journey and being transparent. And I also understand that because you were obedient to God's word, that your kids are better off.
Yes.
And
There.
so, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to take you off the screen. I'm going to
Yes,
do my What
ma'am.
the Hell segment, and then we're going to end this episode. So, again, thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me.
Whoo, what the hell, y'all? Y'all know God working on me. And I'm okay with that, right? Here on our girls' trip in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, one of the things we talked about is self awareness. And I think it's so very important to have that self awareness. And even though when you are doing some self reflections, right, it's good to know where your weak spots are, and it's good to be able to say to yourself, what the hell? It's usually going to be after you do something you ain't had no business doing or saying something you ain't had no business saying. We also talked about how you respond to people. And we had this full conversation around how we respond. One of my older sisters, she's very, delicate and unless catch her wrong, she'll catch you right. But and I was like, well, I'm like Cardi B. When they go low, I go to hell. And so I'm trying to work through that, but I know God's still working on me because I know God, when He looking at me and I'm going to hell with somebody, He is like, what the hell? I did not, this is not what I wanted you to do or how I wanted you to behave. And so we want to make sure that not only are we asking ourselves, what the hell, we are asking other people, what the hell. Are you putting yourself in a position where somebody else is saying, what the hell is wrong with this person? What the hell is wrong with her or him? And so we have to continue to commit to growing and maturing and becoming wiser. And so that people don't have to look at you and say, what the hell? And when you lay down for the last time and close your eyes, God is not going to say to you, what the hell? And so with that, I'm going to thank you all for joining us today. I'm going to thank my special guest, Dr. Ansonia, for coming on, being so transparent and sharing her journey with us. I know her journey is not unique. I know there are other people out there who have had similar journeys and had to figure out how to navigate being obedient to God. But as long as you're obedient to God, everything is going to be all right. So I will see you all in 2 weeks. Have a good night. Thank you for joining and participating in Let's Get Into It. I want to thank my special guest for being brave enough to get into it. Without you, these conversations cannot happen. Remember, different viewpoints, respect, and love are the foundations of Let's Get Into It. If there's a topic you think I should discuss, drop me a recommendation. If you're interested in being my special guest, let me know, because we can and will get into it. Have a great day on purpose, and I look forward to your continued engagement and support as we get into it.